The hall was already full before the lights even dimmed. People had come from different places, dressed in their best clothes, holding phones ready to record every second. This was not just another event. A famous singer was the main attraction, someone known for talent, confidence, and a sharp tongue that people often mistook for humor. The crowd expected music, jokes, and a memorable night. Near the back rows sat a young black girl with a small community group. She did not come to be seen. She came to listen. Singing had always been something private for her, something she did late at night when the house was quiet or early in the morning when no one else was awake. Her voice was a place she felt safe, not something she showed to strangers. She wore simple clothes and kept her hands folded in her lap. While others talked loudly, she stayed quiet, looking around the hall with wide eyes. The stage lights felt far away, like another world. She never imagined they would have anything to do with her. When the singer finally walked on stage, the crowd erupted. Cheers filled the room, loud and sharp. He smiled confidently, soaking it all in. This was his world. He talked easily, joked with the audience, and moved across the stage like he owned it. Every word he said got a reaction. At one point, he began asking questions, pointing at random people. "Where are you from? What do you do?" The crowd laughed at his playful tone. Felt harmless, like part of the show. Then his eyes landed on the quiet girl in the back section. She froze when she noticed him looking directly at her. The lights felt suddenly brighter. He asked her to stand. His voice echoed through the speakers. People turned to look at her. She hesitated, then slowly stood up, her heart beating fast. She could feel hundreds of eyes on her, judging her clothes, her posture, her silence. He asked her what she liked to do. Her voice almost failed her, but she answered honestly. She said she liked to sing. That single sentence changed everything. The singer raised his eyebrows and smiled in a way that made the crowd laugh. He repeated her words into the microphone, stretching them out for effect. He told her that if she liked singing so much, she should come up and sing alone on stage. Some people clapped, thinking it was part of the fun. Others laughed, expecting something awkward. The girl felt her face grow warm. She shook her head slightly, hoping he would move on. But he didn't. He insisted. He told her not to be shy. He said it was just a little song, nothing serious. His tone sounded playful, but there was pressure in it. The crowd started chanting softly, encouraging her to go. She looked toward the people she came with. They looked just as unsure as she felt. No one wanted to embarrass her, but refusing now felt even worse. Her legs felt heavy as she walked toward the aisle. Each step echoed in her ears. She could hear whispers around her, some kind, some doubtful. She tried not to listen. When she reached the stage stairs, a staff member guided her up. The height made her dizzy. The lights were blinding now. She could no longer see faces, only shadows and phones held high. The singer handed her the microphone, felt cold in her hands. He stepped back, crossing his arms, waiting. She stood there, alone in silence. Her mouth went dry. Her thoughts raced. She wondered why she agreed. She wondered if this was a mistake. She wondered if people would laugh once she started. The singer made a small comment about being brave, which made the crowd laugh again. Sounded light, but it cut deep. This was not encouragement. It was a test. She closed her eyes for a moment. In that brief silence, she remembered singing quietly in her room. She remembered how music helped her forget fear. She reminded herself that singing was the one thing that never betrayed her. She took a slow breath. The room was still waiting. The singer looked confident, certain that this moment would go exactly as he expected. The audience leaned forward, ready for whatever came next. The girl lifted the microphone slightly. Her hands were shaking, but her voice, hidden deep inside, was steady. Just as she was about to sing, the lights dimmed a little more, and the noise faded into a soft hush. The moment felt stretched, fragile, like something important was about to happen, even if no one yet understood why. And in that quiet pause, standing alone on a stage she never asked to be on, she prepared to let the world hear her for the very first time. The girl felt the weight of the microphone in her hands. It was more than just metal. It carried the gaze of hundreds of people, their expectation heavy in the air. She had never sung in front of anyone like this. Her usual songs, the ones she sang when she was alone, felt small compared to the room she now faced. The singer, standing a few feet away, crossed his arms and smiled. The smile was playful, but it was clear he expected her to stumble. The crowd chuckled softly, some whispering among themselves, ready for amusement. Her hands trembled slightly, but she tried to steady them. She looked out into the audience, trying to focus on familiar faces. Her friends from the community group gave her small, encouraging nods. She drew in a deep breath, letting it fill her chest, reminding herself of all the nights she had spent singing quietly at home. That had been her world, and maybe, just maybe, she could carry it here too. The first words came out softly, barely above a whisper. She was careful at first, cautious of every note. The room was quiet, listening. The laughter that had filled the air moments ago began to fade as people noticed that something was different. She wasn't nervous in a way that made her shake. She was nervous in a way that made her focus. Every word mattered. Every sound she made counted. The singer raised an eyebrow, leaning slightly forward. He had expected an awkward performance, a little girl lost on stage. Instead, what he heard was more than he had imagined. It wasn't loud or showy, but it carried emotion, a rawness that made people pause. The audience shifted in their seats, some leaning closer, others holding their breath. Phones went up, capturing the moment that no one wanted to miss. As the song continued, the girl's confidence grew. The first notes had been soft, tentative, but now her voice began to find its strength. It rose steadily, rich and clear, resonating through the hall. People looked around, surprised at the depth and control of her singing. Some whispered to their neighbors, not sure if what they were hearing was real. The singer's confident posture wavered just a little. He had underestimated her, and it was beginning to show. She moved through the song naturally, almost forgetting the crowd. Her body relaxed as she let the music take over. Each note she sang was a piece of her life, a story she had never told anyone before. The audience could feel it. It wasn't just a performance. It was honesty. The people who had come for entertainment were now witnesses to something real. The laughter from before was gone. Even those who had been ready to mock her were silent, unsure of how to react. The singer shifted, his smirk fading slightly. He tried to maintain control, but there was a tension in the room he hadn't anticipated. The girl's voice was not just strong. It was powerful in a way that carried emotion he couldn't replicate. He looked at her, realizing that this moment was no longer about his show. It had shifted. She had taken it and made it hers. Some people in the audience had tears in their eyes. They had come expecting to be entertained and instead were moved. The girl noticed a few nods of respect, even from people who were strangers. It gave her a little more courage. She continued to sing, moving into higher notes that were tricky for anyone to hold. Yet she did it with precision and grace. The notes were not forced. They came naturally, a product of years of quiet practice and love for singing. The singer stepped back slightly, trying to regain composure. He had been the center of attention for so long, used to commanding a room. But now all eyes were on her. The audience was caught between admiration and disbelief. He whispered something under his breath, almost to himself, as he realized that she had surpassed his expectation. The girl had transformed what was meant to be a small, mocking moment into something unforgettable. Her song began to reach its climax. She hit notes that were clear, vibrant, and full of feeling. Every sound she made seemed to fill the space around her, touching people in ways they hadn't expected. The hall, filled with hundreds of voices and phones, seemed to pause in reverence. The singer watched, stunned. He had never imagined that someone so young, with such little experience in public performance, could command such power. As the final notes approached, the girl closed her eyes, letting herself feel every moment. She wasn't thinking about the audience, the singer, or the expectations. She was just singing. She poured herself into the song completely, feeling the music flow through her. It was a moment of freedom, a moment of truth. She had been nervous, pressured, and unsure, but now she was in control. The last note lingered in the air, soft yet commanding, before fading into silence. The room was still. For a moment, no one moved or spoke. It was as if everyone was trying to process what had just happened. The girl opened her eyes slowly, breathing heavily but with a quiet sense of triumph. She had done it. She had faced the crowd, the famous singer, and herself, and she had sung with everything she had. Then, slowly, the applause began. It started with a few claps, then grew louder until the entire hall was clapping, cheering, and some people were even standing. The girl's friends rushed forward, hugging her, their faces lit with pride. The singer's smile returned, but it was different now. It was no longer one of amusement. It was a mix of surprise and respect. He nodded at her, acknowledging that she had turned a moment meant to mock into a display of incredible talent. People continued to take videos, post reactions, and whisper about how unexpected and moving the performance had been. The girl stepped back, exhausted but exhilarated. She had conquered fear, stage fright, and the subtle judgment of an audience. She had shown herself and the world that her voice was powerful, beautiful, and undeniable. That night, a simple request to sing alone had become the defining moment of her young life, one she would carry forever. After the initial applause, the hall seemed to buzz with a new energy. The girl stood on stage, still holding the microphone, her heart racing. Her hands were no longer trembling, but the adrenaline still flowed through her. The crowd had reacted differently than she expected. She could feel eyes studying her, not with judgment, but with awe. Something had changed in the air. The playful atmosphere the singer had created had shifted into something serious, something memorable. The singer, who had been used to controlling the room, was now quiet. His arms were still crossed, but the confident smirk had faded. He watched her closely, perhaps realizing that this girl had just accomplished something he could not predict. He had thought he was in charge, but she had taken the moment and made it hers. The girl could feel his eyes on her, but instead of fear, she felt a strange sort of calm. She had faced this stage, this audience, and the singer, and she had survived, even thrived. People in the crowd began talking quietly to each other. Their voices carried admiration and disbelief. Many had come expecting entertainment, a small moment of humor at the expense of a shy girl. Instead, they had witnessed raw talent, emotion, and courage. Phones were still recording, hands were still clapping, and a few people even whispered words of respect. Some were wiping tears from their eyes, unable to hide their emotional reactions. The girl took a deep breath and decided to sing again, this time without hesitation. The first song had been her way of stepping onto the stage, testing the waters. Now, she allowed herself to fully enter the music. She closed her eyes and let the sound flow naturally, trusting her voice, trusting the moment, trusting herself. Each note carried more confidence, more power, and more emotion. She began hitting higher notes with ease, notes that were often difficult for even trained singers to sustain. The audience was completely silent again, listening intently. The singer's expression showed a mixture of surprise and contemplation. He realized that the girl's talent was undeniable, that her voice had something special he had never encountered. He had intended to mock her, to create a moment of entertainment, but instead he had been outdone by someone he had underestimated. His pride and ego felt the weight of the reality before him. Meanwhile, the girl felt a strange sensation. Singing alone had always been her safe space, but now, on this stage, it was transforming into something larger. Her music was reaching people, touching hearts, and commanding attention. She felt a connection with the audience she had never imagined. It was as if the room itself was listening to her story, her courage, and her life through the language of song. Every note resonated not just in the hall, but in the hearts of everyone present. The singer tried to regain control, to steer the performance into familiar territory, but it was impossible. He had thought the crowd was there for him, for his music, for his entertainment. He had thought he could direct every moment. But the girl had taken the spotlight in a way he could not predict. She had captivated the room, not with force or theatrics, but with sincerity, talent, and bravery. People began to record the performance on their phones, but it felt different from the typical clips of celebrity shows. This was a moment of authenticity, a moment that viewers knew would be shared and remembered. The girl's friends, standing at the side of the stage, cheered softly, but their eyes were wide with amazement. They had known she could sing, but even they were overwhelmed by the power of her performance in front of such a large audience. As she reached the middle of the song, the notes became even more complex. She experimented with subtle changes in tone, with vibrato that added emotion, and with timing that gave the song depth. Her voice filled every corner of the hall, reaching people in ways words could not. Some audience members leaned forward, as if drawn into the story she was telling. Some closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them. It was no longer a performance. It was an experience. The singer's eyes narrowed slightly. He had never seen someone command a stage like this. His ego had expected to shine, but now he had to face the truth. This girl was not just good. She was exceptional. He had underestimated her in every way. And yet, there was a part of him that could not help but admire her courage. She had stood alone, faced the spotlight, and turned what could have been humiliation into triumph. The girl moved toward the final part of the song. Her breathing was controlled, her posture confident. She had learned something in these few minutes on stage. Fear and pressure could be transformed into power. She let her voice soar, hitting the highest notes effortlessly, notes that were previously unimaginable for someone her age and experience. The crowd erupted in whispers and quiet gasps of amazement. Then, as the song reached its final note, she held it with perfect control, letting it linger in the air. The hall was silent again, this time not in tension, but in admiration. Every person present felt the weight and beauty of what they had just witnessed. The singer stood frozen, a rare expression of humility on his face. He had expected to be the star, but he now realized that true talent could not be overshadowed, and he was witnessing it in its purest form. Slowly, the applause began. At first, it was hesitant, a few hands clapping, but then it grew louder and stronger, until the entire room was clapping, cheering, and some were even standing. The girl lowered the microphone, her chest rising and falling rapidly, not from exhaustion, but from a rush of emotions. Relief, pride, joy, and newfound confidence. She had faced what seemed impossible and had emerged victorious. People in the audience shouted words of praise, some calling out how incredible her voice was. Phones continued to record, capturing the moment for the world to see. The girl's friends rushed to the stage, hugging her, their faces glowing with pride and admiration. She smiled, exhausted but exhilarated, realizing that the experience had changed her. She had discovered a strength within herself that she did not know existed. The singer, finally regaining composure, stepped forward and nodded in respect. His voice was calm, different from before, as he acknowledged her talent and courage. He had learned an important lesson that night, that humility, honesty, and true skill could surpass arrogance and expectation. The moment had transformed from a casual joke into a powerful demonstration of resilience, talent, and heart. As the girl stepped off the stage, people continued to talk, clap, and record, sharing their admiration. She had turned a potentially humiliating situation into a defining moment of triumph. That night, she had proven that courage, talent, and sincerity could shine brighter than any mockery, and she had left a lasting impression on everyone present. It was a night she would remember forever, the night she showed the world her true voice. The hall was still buzzing with energy as the girl stepped down from the stage. Her legs felt wobbly, and her chest heaved from both the physical exertion and the emotional intensity of the moment. The audience had not stopped applauding, and people were still whispering in amazement about what they had just witnessed. It was no longer just a performance. It had become a story of courage, of talent rising above expectation, and of someone turning a difficult situation into a triumph. The singer, who had been the center of attention only moments before, stood silently, watching her move through the crowd of people who had gathered to congratulate her. His usual confident demeanor was replaced with an almost blank expression. He had not expected this. He had anticipated laughter, awkwardness, and a moment of fun at someone else's expense. Instead, he had been humbled, witnessing a talent that not only held its own but outshone him in subtle ways he had never anticipated. People began approaching her, strangers who had been in the audience, asking for her name, praising her voice, and expressing how moved they were. She smiled, grateful and shy at the same time, unsure of how to respond to so many people at once. Her friends from the community group rushed forward to embrace her, pride shining on their faces. They had known she had talent, but seeing her rise under such pressure left them in awe. The singer finally spoke, his voice calm and measured. He complimented her performance, acknowledging that she had done something remarkable. The audience listened, realizing that he was genuinely admitting his surprise. His words, once meant to tease or provoke, now carried respect. The dynamic of the room had completely shifted. What had started as a potential moment of embarrassment had become a defining achievement, both for the girl and for those who had witnessed it. The girl felt a mix of emotions. Relief, pride, and a newfound confidence swirled inside her. She had faced a challenge she never thought she could overcome, and she had succeeded. She realized that fear and doubt were powerful, but they could be transformed into strength when met with courage and perseverance. The applause, the whispers of admiration, and the looks of respect from strangers all reinforced what she had always known deep down, that her voice was her own, and it carried power beyond what she had ever imagined. As the crowd began to settle, some people recorded short videos on their phones, capturing the moment for the wider world. The girl was no longer just a participant in a local event. She had become a symbol of courage and talent. Social media would soon share her story, and people beyond the hall would witness the same transformation the live audience had experienced. She had turned vulnerability into strength and a simple act of singing into something that inspired others. The singer, watching from the stage, reflected on what had just happened. He realized that true talent and authenticity could never be mocked or diminished. His initial intent to create humor at her expense had been completely undermined by her voice, her confidence, and her ability to connect with the audience. He felt a mixture of respect and humility, knowing that the girl had taught him an important lesson about underestimating others and the power of genuine ability. Meanwhile, the girl's friends began taking photos and videos with her, wanting to preserve the memory of the moment. They cheered her on, and she laughed softly, feeling a warmth and sense of belonging she had not felt before. She realized that support, encouragement, and believing in oneself were as important as talent. Her courage had been magnified by the presence of those who cared for her, and the impact of that support was clear in every smile and gesture around her. The audience began to approach more respectfully now, not as spectators expecting a performance, but as witnesses to something meaningful. People shared their admiration and sometimes even tears of emotion. Some approached the singer as well, questioning him about his reactions, and he responded honestly, acknowledging that he had underestimated the young girl. The room was filled with a mixture of humility, pride, and awe, creating a unique energy that lingered long after the music had stopped. The girl stood quietly, listening to the feedback and praise, feeling a quiet satisfaction inside her. She realized that she had not only performed for others but also for herself. She had faced fear, embraced it, and found her strength. This was more than a performance. It was a lesson in resilience, courage, and authenticity. She felt a deep sense of accomplishment, knowing that she had handled a difficult situation with grace and confidence. As the night went on, people continued to talk about her performance. Some came back to compliment her again, expressing admiration for her bravery and talent. The singer watched quietly, learning to appreciate the impact of talent when it was expressed sincerely and without pretense. He understood that moments like these were rare, that real artistry came not from ego or control, but from honesty and dedication. Eventually, the event began to wind down. The girl and her friends prepared to leave, but the experience had left an indelible mark on all of them. The audience would remember her courage, the singer would reflect on the lesson she had taught, and the girl herself would carry the memory of triumph and resilience forever. She had discovered a power within herself, a strength that could face challenge, criticism, and expectation without breaking. She had proven that courage and talent could shine even under the harshest spotlight, and that lesson would guide her in the days to come. The days after the performance were unlike anything the girl had ever experienced. Her phone began to buzz constantly with messages, notifications, and calls from friends, family, and strangers who had seen the video of her singing. Social media was alive with clips of her performance, and comments poured in, praising her courage, talent, and the power of her voice. People were inspired by how she had turned a situation that could have been embarrassing into a moment of triumph. She felt a mix of excitement and disbelief. Seeing the reactions of people around the world made her realize the impact of what she had done. Her private love for singing had suddenly become a public story, and it was more than just recognition. It was an acknowledgement of her bravery. She reread messages from people saying that her performance had given them hope, made them smile, or reminded them to trust their own abilities. Every message made her heart swell with a quiet pride she had never felt before. The singer, who had been at the event, also felt the ripples of that night. He had watched the video online and seen the same reactions that the girl had witnessed. The realization of what had happened was slowly sinking in. He had tried to create a light-hearted moment, a way to entertain, but what emerged was far beyond his control. He now understood that true talent could not be forced or mocked, and he felt a sense of humility he hadn't experienced in a long time. The girl's performance had become a teaching moment, not just for the audience but for him as well. In the following days, people from the music industry reached out to her family. Producers, vocal coaches, and organizers wanted to meet her, to hear more of her voice, and to discuss opportunities. It was overwhelming but thrilling. For someone who had always sung in private, this sudden attention was both surprising and validating. Her family supported her every step, making sure she stayed grounded even as doors began to open. They were proud but cautious, understanding that talent and opportunity were both blessings and responsibilities. Despite the sudden fame, the girl remained humble. She continued to practice, honing her skills, and learning more about music. She knew that a single moment, no matter how extraordinary, was only the beginning. She remembered the stage, the lights, the pressure, and the feeling of overcoming fear. That memory became a source of motivation. She wanted to grow, to become even better, and to make the most of the opportunity she had earned. The singer eventually made a public statement acknowledging the girl's talent. He admitted that he had underestimated her and expressed respect for her courage and skill. The statement was widely shared and praised, showing that even established figures could learn humility from unexpected places. The girl, upon hearing his words, felt a sense of closure. She didn't want revenge or attention. She simply wanted to be recognized for her talent, and now she was. Invitations for performances began to arrive. Local events, small concerts, and community gatherings wanted her to perform, but now she had an audience that respected her abilities. Each performance, no matter how small, was an opportunity to grow and to connect with others through music. She approached each one with focus, remembering the lessons of courage, perseverance, and authenticity she had learned on that first stage. The video of her singing continued to circulate, inspiring many more people. Stories appeared online, praising her poise, talent, and bravery. She read some of them carefully, sometimes smiling, sometimes feeling emotional. People related to her struggle with fear, her determination to rise above it, and her ability to remain true to herself. The girl realized that her voice was not just about singing. It was about expressing emotions, telling stories, and connecting with others in a profound way. Through all this, she learned an important lesson about resilience. Life would present moments that were unexpected, challenging, and even uncomfortable. But facing those moments with honesty and courage could transform them into opportunities. She had turned what could have been humiliation into a defining moment of success. She understood that bravery wasn't the absence of fear, but the choice to act in spite of it. This insight stayed with her as she moved forward, guiding her decisions and her path in life. The singer, reflecting privately, realized that the encounter had changed him too. He had been reminded that talent was not something to belittle or mock, that the true power of music came from authenticity and courage. He began to approach his own performances differently, with more awareness of the people around him, and more respect for those who had hidden talent waiting to shine. The girl had taught him something invaluable, and that lesson stayed with him in ways he hadn't anticipated. Months passed, and the girl continued to grow as a singer and as a person. She performed at community events, gained opportunities to sing in more formal settings, and connected with mentors who guided her in music. She remained grounded, remembering the small girl who had once sung alone in her room, the girl who had faced the lights, the crowd, and the singer on stage. That memory reminded her that talent was only part of the journey. Courage, perseverance, and authenticity were equally important. She never forgot the night that changed everything. It was a story she would carry with her forever. The night she was compelled to sing alone, the night she faced fear, the night she exceeded expectations, and the night she showed the world the power of her voice. That night became more than a memory. It became a foundation on which she built confidence, ambition, and purpose. Her journey continued, filled with challenges, triumphs, and learning. She had learned that one performance could change a life, but it was the choices afterward, the commitment to growth and integrity, that truly defined a person. She sang not just for applause, not just for recognition, but for the joy, the connection, and the truth that music could bring. Every note, every song, every performance became a testament to her journey, a reminder that courage and talent could shine even when the world seemed against you. In the end, she had proven that even a single, unexpected opportunity could reveal the best within someone. She had faced fear, transformed it into power, and inspired countless people along the way. Her voice was more than sound. It was a story, a lesson, and a gift. And as she looked forward to the future, she knew that she would carry the lessons of that night forever, singing with courage, humility, and heart.